Hi students, welcome to Vijay IAS Academy. In Hindu newspaper, an editorial is given related to economic costs due to Russia's war on Ukraine. Now let us see what are the contents given. The issue is going on for so many days, and now we are seeing this as part of impact of war between Russia and Ukraine. Now it was like a unilateral war declared by Russia on Ukraine. Now Western allies and USA are reacting to this war and they are imposing sanctions on Russia. These sanctions not only affect Russia's economy and Russia's future, but the entire world is interconnected now. The impact on Russia and other world, it will take a serious situation for the whole global economy. Now, under these circumstances, this editorial is analyzing what are the sanctions so far imposed on Russia and how it so far affected Russia and how it will affect the other countries as well. It is starting like saying US, UK and European allies imposed further restrictive economic measures. Since the day one of war, they are imposing restrictions. Now latest sanctions like they started imposing in various other angles, mainly restricting the access to SWIFT mechanism. It will increase the costs on Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. First one is SWIFT. Western allies decided to block selected Russian banks from SWIFT messaging system, isolating Russia from the international financial system. SWIFT is a mechanism where banks and financial institutions use to validate and complete international payment transactions. It is a safe mechanism, secure mechanism, and also quick mechanism to settle the transactions among various countries, because entire world is a globalized now. Now, in order to have a continuous streamline of continuous transactions, there should be a mechanism. SWIFT is a one kind of financial and banking mechanism where countries settle their financial transactions real time. Now Russian banks came under attack. Russian banks, now selected some Russian banks were blocked giving access to SWIFT. Now what will be the impact? These banks which were doing business with other countries, now the funds will be blocked to these companies, to these financial companies. Now we'll see what is the impact on Russia and what is the impact already visible on Russia's economy. These countries resolved to impose restrictions on Russian central bank's ability to access and deploy the country's war chest of an estimated $630 billion in foreign exchange reserves. On one hand, they imposed or blocked the access to SWIFT mechanism, and another one, now they resolved to limit the transactions related to foreign exchange reserves as well. Russia had 630 billion reserves. Now these 630 billion dollar reserves are useful in doing war for some time. But if they restrict access to these forex reserves, now it will affect Russia's economically, and Russia cannot use these forex reserves freely. So it will limit the effect of war Russia, that is unilaterally declared on Ukraine. A sharp, and another one is sharp depreciation in the value of ruble. Ruble is the currency of Russia. This can be a important point for prelims point of view. Ruble is the currency of Russia. The currency tumbled almost 30% intraday to a record low against the dollar in Asian trading and has weakened about 26% so far in 2022 alone. Now rupee depreciation in India, for example, if you take, it will have cascading effects on Indian economy. Like it will increase the inflation, it will increase the cost of various commodities, it will increase the inflation, it will reduce the profits or the income of the companies, and indirectly it affects the employment of entire economy. So it will have cascading effects on the economy. Similarly, now depreciation in Russia's currency will have cascading effects on its economy. Now the prime reason behind this is, if any country is powerful enough to continue war for a long time. That is because of strong economic system. So these sanctions are mainly focused on crippling Russian economy. So by blocking SWIFT mechanism and also by restricting some of the financial institutions and also foreign exchange reserves, it will affect the Russian economy. It will lead to further damage to the Russian economy, and it will create pressure on the Russian government from the Russian public itself not to continue the war on Ukraine. So this is the intended reason behind imposing sanctions. Otherwise, generally what happens if war is started, now natural reaction is countering the war with weapons. But now these are the methods which are fighting against an aggressive country without going for the direct war, because going directly war with weapons leads to loss of human life and leads to destruction of life and property. Now these are the other means to fight a battle. So this is how Western US and Western allies are fighting against Russia. Russian central bank increased interest rate up to 20%, the highest in almost 2 decades, impose controls on capital flows. Now you can see it will have cascading effects. It will affect the entire Russian economy. Now their fiscal system, their monetary policy, you can compare like whatever economic concepts which we read in case of Indian economy, like monetary policy. Monetary policy regulates the inflation in a country. Similarly, now Russian monetary policy controls the inflation in Russia. Now those are getting affected by these sanctions. Impact on Russia. Russia's largest lender, it is a financial system and bank, found its European arm facing a run on its deposits, which the European Central Bank warned could lead to units failure. European Central Bank warned that could lead to the complete failure of this lender, this bank. With Russians also waiting in long queues outside ATMs on fear of likely crash shortages, the country's citizens face the real prospect of runaway inflation. Now the economic term, inflation is rising general prices. Runaway inflation means rising the prices of commodities very fast. It will reduce the savings of citizen of Russian. Now it will create a lot of havoc on the Russian economy. Now it will put pressure on the public of Russia. It is expected that Russian public themselves will create or demand the government of Russia not to go for war or not to continue the war and go for negotiations to stop this war. So this is the intended reason behind these sanctions. Already impact on Russian economy visible. Now Russia alone is not the victim. Now entire world is going to face the consequences. For example, here if we take any economy, here Russia has, it is like globalized world. Now we are in globalization era. In globalization, many countries do trade with Russia and Russia do trade with many parts of the world. Now once the entire financial system of Russia is blocked, means Russian companies cannot do business with outside world, and now those who are already doing business with Russia, they also will get affected. So this is the main aspect. Now entire world will get affected. For example, India's economic transactions between Russia and India will get affected. Russia, China affected. Russia and Europe will get affected. Now here main point is, here the conflict is in Europe. The most likely European countries are going to be affected because Russian economy and European economy is well integrated. Oil reserves and other commodities, the transaction between Western European countries and Russia is so closely integrated. Now whatever effect it will have on Russia, it will affect the other countries as well. In yesterday's editorial, we have seen that India also got affected, but the exports and imports between Russia and India are limited. So direct impact of Russian economy on India are limited, but indirect effect on India is more. Now let us see what is the impact on world. The economic costs are already being felt worldwide. Banks, if you take example banks, European banks and companies with significant business exposure to Russia have taken a beating on the bourses, means stock exchanges, given the extent to which the sharp escalation in the sanctions is certain to hurt their operations and revenues. As I have said, it is a globalized world. Now Russian interests and European companies and banks which are doing business with Russia, they are going to be directly hit by these sanctions. And oil and gas is the major one, because Russia get most of the revenues from exports of oil and gas. Now it affects the exports of Russia, fine, but those who are importing oil and gas are also going to be affected by this. Though the Western allies have carefully avoided any mention so far, they are very careful in handling or in affecting the oil and gas, in targeting oil and gas industry. Closing the tap on Russia's massive exports of oil and gas that contribute substantially to the country's current account surplus. Russia is getting current account surplus because of exports in oil and gas field. Concerns about possible disruption, it is going to disrupt even in this sector as well. Shipment from the world's second largest producer of oil have pushed the price of Brent crude price. So oil prices also increased. Now Russia is the world's second largest producer of oil. The sanctions on Russia will affect the production of oil and gas. Other countries cannot import oil and gas. It will affect the oil and gas sector in Russia. It affects the Russian economy. On the other hand, those who are importing oil and gas will also get affected. Because of these developments, already oil price increased 3 digits, more than $100 a barrel already it is. In yesterday's editorial, we have seen that how it is going to affect India's financial system as well. Now Western European countries are going to face this burden, and rest of the world also will face the consequences. With most large European economies majorly reliant on energy supplies from Russia. Russia is supplying energy to these most of the European countries. Large economies like Germany, you can take example. The spectre of rising energy costs fanning a bruising acceleration in the inflation in Europe. And in yesterday's editorial also we have seen, if there is a rise in oil prices, that oil price will affect the commodities in the economy. If it affects the production of economy, then it will raise the prices of commodities, it will raise the inflation, and inflation which will affect the entire system, economic system itself, because whatever monetary policy devised by central banks will not be effective, because monetary policies are going on based on certain assumptions, like oil prices will be at this average, but now oil prices are going to become very volatile, and monetary policy devised by central banks will not take effective. And also fiscal policy, the budgetary estimates and economic survey estimates of countries also will not be accurate. Now again, everything is going to affect the economy system. Not only Russia, those who are dependent on Russia also now are going to face the burden of this particular challenge. Now just now we are coming out of post-COVID recovery. Durable recovery from the shock of COVID-19 pandemic is yet to take hold. Just countries are now understanding the situation of COVID, how to handle the COVID. Just countries are adjusting to this new reality. But now once again world is in shock due to this war. The war initiated by Russia poses a challenge to the global economy. Way forward, editorial is suggesting expedient negotiations to end the conflict are the only way forward. Unless the parties come to the negotiation table, world economy cannot be saved. So this is about editorial given in Hindu in today. This is about editorial. Thank you.